Parts of Florida will spend much of the weekend cleaning up after destruction left behind by the storm.
Now, the Category 2 storm is expected to cause dangerous floods in Savannah, Georgia and Charleston, South Carolina. And CBS 13's Don Champion is live in Daytona Beach, Florida with this breaking story. Don?
Good evening, Christina and Tony. The scars from Matthew are found up and down the Florida coast tonight. The building behind me, just one of the countless damaged by the powerful storm. And tonight, just north of here, Matthew is still wreaking havoc.
Hurricane Matthew is lashing the southeast, bringing heavy rain, vicious winds, and severe flooding to Florida. As it makes its way northward, more than 1 million people in central Florida and along its Atlantic coast are without power as Matthew's fierce winds bring down trees and power lines.
My buddy, right in front of his house, the power line came and fell right in front of his house, so he can't even come out of his house right now.
In St. Augustine, a turbulent river of floodwater trapped 20 people, including children, inside a bed and breakfast. This is the view from inside the B&B as frightened guests watched the water rush by outside.
Okay, here we go.
In Ormond Beach, a pane of glass kept the floodwater out while these inside wondered how long it would hold.
Florida's governor says some gas stations here have shortages but are being refueled.
The current fuel supply in the state will last at least 5 days if no port is open.
In Titusville, tenants were forced out of this apartment building damaged by the hurricane. In Charleston, South Carolina, conditions there are predicted to worsen as the night goes on and Matthew moves up the East Coast.
The best thing now is to just hunker down. Stay in a safe place. Don't move. Don't try and move around.
In Savannah, Georgia, police shut down historic River Street because of flooding brought on by the most powerful hurricane to strike the country in more than a decade.
And at this hour, power outages remain a big problem up and down the coast here. At last check, more than 1.1 million people were without service. Tony and Christina, in an effort of calming fears of looting in this area, police are patrolling heavily damaged areas tonight.
And Don, as you go around talking with people, I know complacency is a problem for a lot of folks when they hear a storm is coming. Do you think most people thought that it was worse than expected?
No, I definitely, when you talk to people around here tonight, a lot of them do acknowledge the damage is pretty bad, but they do say they think it could have been much worse. And in fact, it would have been much worse if Matthew would have made landfall just south of here, because this region would have gotten the very heavy, the very strong winds on the eastern side of the storm had the storm made landfall just south of here. So definitely people see the damage and say it's bad, but they're very thankful that it wasn't much worse.
Sure.
Don Champion live in Daytona Beach. Don, thanks. Stay safe out there.
Let's get to Dave Bender now. He's been tracking the storm all day long. What's the latest, Dave?
At this point, down to about 105-mile-per-hour winds, still a Category 2, and right off the coast of Georgia here, ready to go on up into South Carolina, and that's where you're seeing a lot of big bands of heavy rain up through here. So that's where the flooding issues are going to occur as far as the amounts of rain that could come down. Could see an excess of maybe a foot plus as it goes all the way up into North Carolina and grazing Virginia. So there's the eye right there. We'll go ahead and put the wind vectors in here and also show you the red areas. Those are your hurricane warnings. The orange are your tropical storm warnings. And right there you can see your flash flood warnings, all part of, again, this massive storm, which is starting to wind down a little bit. It is going to roll along the coast. It's going to be an interesting 24 to 48 hours. Right now, again, sitting here as a Category 2 pack and winds at about 105 miles per hour. And you can see it's already moving off to the north. It's still at a pretty good clip here. So it's going to graze along, probably adjust, glancing below on Charleston, head on up toward the outer banks here of North Carolina. And then as it gets out over the Atlantic, it's still in hurricane force strength, at least a Category 1 as we get into Sunday. And then it kind of falls apart. And notice it comes back at least potentially as a tropical wave or depression heading down again toward the Bahamas, where they had to deal with this as a Category 4. So it'll be an interesting weekend, not only there, but also here, because we have potentially some summer-like weather. Details in a bit. Back over to you.
Dave, thanks. Local PG&E crews poised